you guys? Paul here with Paul's Performance, and welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're going to be tackling some issues that we're having on my girlfriend's TDI Jetta. It is a 2006 Volkswagen Jetta with the BRM turbo diesel, obviously, and it doesn't really have that many issues. It still runs and drives. She drives it all the time, but one issue, the reason why I'm driving it actually, the rear tire is got a slow leak in it, and I'm trying to figure out what that is. And while I was driving it, I had to look at the check engine light, which has been on for a long time and may or may not be caused by me. Okay, it was caused by me, but hear me out. When I bought the car broke. I put a new cam in it, put a new dual mass flywheel in it, and I ended up having to put a turbo actuator in it. And the proper fix for this car is to replace the entire turbo assembly, which the actuator comes pre-assembled on the turbo, and they set the actuator, you know, on the bench. And I see why they did that, because it is super picky about where that actuator is, because if it's off, I mean, just half a thread, the car will bog down. I mean, it causes a bunch of stuff. And when I first installed it, I had these issues, the bogging down, and I had to kind of tinker with it and look up the specs and kind of get it close, and then kind of tinker with it a couple times, and I finally got it to where it would run, and it had just a slight turbo lag in it, but the check engine light stayed. But at the time, she had to have a car, and so she had to drive it, and we just let it ride. Well, now that I have the Tesla and she's able to drive that, I have a little bit of time to tinker with it. So I'm also going to be messing with that, and I'm either going to fix it and get rid of the light, or I am going to break it. So one thing with this sensor is, unlike the ALH, which is what's in my TDI, the actuator is still vacuum, but it has a electronic, you know, sensor on it that takes a resistance reading based on where it's at and sends that to the computer. And apparently the computer doesn't like where it's at, so we gotta please the computer and get that actuator in the perfect spot, which could be literally an eighth of a turn for the threads on how picky this is. So like I said, we're either going to fix it, or we're going to need to ride back to the house. So let's get under the hood and see if we cannot break something. All right, guys, so as you can see, we are now under the hood. Here is our engine cover, which I know for a lot of TDIs are missing and gone and thrown in the trash. And actually, for this car in particular, it was not here when I bought it, but I went on the good old Evil Bay and I bought this cover because I think it just looks cleaner, especially when you clean it up. It just looks real nice, and it covers up all that black, you know, oily soot that's underneath every diesel engine cover. So that works out great also. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull this off, and all it does is pops into these little grommets. So we're going to pull that off. We're going to scratch the paint. So we got this off. And what we're looking for is this actuator right back here. So I'm going to move the camera and show you guys what I'm looking at. So right here we have our turbo actuator, and as you can see, it has a plug-in going into it, which when you see one of these, that's when you know you're gonna have problems. Just kidding, I'm not one of those old school guys, but I will say for this in particular, it does kind of suck having this smart actuator. So if you look down in here, shine my light, and right there is one of the nuts. There's actually two nuts going on this long stud that comes out of this actuator, one on each side, and it goes to the VGT vanes. And what it does is it will actually go, the vacuum will push it, you know, out and in, and that moves the VGT vanes, opens and closes the vanes there. And then this little sensor here sends that resistance reading back to the computer and tells it, you know, smart things. So there's our problem, is we're not getting the proper reading from this. But like I said, I know that after doing a lot of reading on this, and you know, most of them saying that you're supposed to replace the whole turbo, I can see why, because it seems like it's very picky. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break loose those nuts, and I'm gonna turn maybe half a turn and adjust it, and then see what happens, because I'm very close where I'm at. I mean, because it runs very good, it just has a slight lag, and the code's still there. So I think I'm right on the money. I just need to go just a smidge more. So we're gonna do that and hope that we get it on the first try. So let's go get some tools. So what we're gonna use is this 10mm, and yes, it is Craftsman. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick it down in here at this angle, and I'm gonna catch one side of the top, and I'm gonna break the top loose, because it is impossible, well, not impossible, practically impossible to get the bottom one broke loose. So I'm gonna break the top one loose, and once the top one's loose, the bottom one will not have pressure on it. So then I should be able to turn the bottom one with a pick, and then tighten the top one back up to the bottom one and try it out. If your actuator is rusty, you might as well pack it up. Go ahead and get your turbo out, because this ain't gonna happen. So it's very hard to do. Like I said, once this new one's on here, you know, you got nice clean threads, it's possible. But if your threads are rusted up on this bad boy, you're gonna be hurt, because it is very, very hard to get anything on to these two nuts, which is another reason why it says, you know, take it off, do it on a bench, or replace the whole turbo, So I mean, it makes sense, but I don't want to take this turbo off, because this turbo is not bad, just this thing's bad. And I think you can delete this, and you know, delete smart actuator, delete I don't want to do all that either. I just want to get this one right. So I've already gotten the top one broke loose, so now I'm just going to go get a little pick, and I'm going to turn the bottom one about half a turn, and then I'm going to tighten up the top one back to it, and then we're going to take her up the road for a good old test drive. Alright guys, so what I'm doing is I'm taking this pick, and see, this is my upper, the upper nut, and then there's another one just like it on the bottom on the bottom of this actuator tab, and I broke this one loose with the wrench, and then I took this pick and I swiped it to turn the bottom one, and I'm only turning it one flat of this hex at a time, and I'm gonna do that until I get it right. So I turned it one flat, and then I tightened this one back up with the wrench, and now we're gonna take it up the road and we're gonna see what happens. All right, so we made it down the driveway, so we're doing good. Now, basically, from what I remember from when the last time I fooled with it, if it's off enough to really make the car angry, it will start bogging down and just skipping once you try to get into it. So I'm gonna hop right here on the highway, which is right outside my driveway. So best spot to test it out on is a highway with lots of truckers going 80 miles an hour, and see what happens, especially with the hill
to climb. So we're gonna pull out. So far it's doing okay. Well, I mean, not okay, it's doing fine. Yeah, I mean, it's doing pretty good. Shifting pretty good. It kind of still feels a little like it has a lag in it, but it's not bogging down, which is great. But I need to clear the check engine light and see if the check engine light comes back. And then if the check engine light don't come back, then we're good. So that's when we're in the clear. But first, obviously, first off, we got to make sure that the car runs. Because if it doesn't run, then we're not good. So we've made it up the road. It seems to be running pretty good. So now we're going to clear the light and see if it comes back. If it comes back, then we're gonna have to readjust and re-clear and redrive and just keep redoing. And I know this process sucks, but it's still better than taking the turbo out, because when I put it in, granted it bogged down a couple times, but I did it about 4 or 5 times on the adjustment, and I got it to where it would run okay. I mean, run good, but the light was still on, and she's been driving it for 2 years. So, I mean, those 4 or 5 adjustments, I mean, it only takes, you know, maybe 5 minutes to adjust that screw. I mean, once you have the new one in, it breaks loose, you adjust it, tighten it back up, drive up the road. And for me, way better than removing the turbo out of this, because I'm not taking that turbo out unless that turbo goes bad. I am not replacing that turbo for this actuator. I refuse to do it. I will go above and beyond before I take that turbo out because of that actuator. So hopefully we got it on the first try, and if we did, then, you know, just can't say nothing, but I mean, it must be that good. So I guess we're gonna see. We're gonna take it back, but pull back in the driveway, hook it up to the computer, clear the code, and see if it comes back. All right, so we're back at the shop, and we are hooking up our Leapfrog tablet here. I know not everyone has a Leapfrog tablet. I mean, not everyone can be cool, but you can just hook up any code reader and read the code. That's all I'm doing is reading it and clearing it. So I mean, any basic code reader, I mean, I just so happen to have a Leap tab. So anyways, I'm still getting the P2564 code: charge, pressure, actuator, sensor, position sensor, signal too small. I would say, you know, there's a lot of things you could check if you do have this code, but I've already checked all my wiring. I mean, obviously I have a new actuator in there. The adjustment is just off. And I cleared it out, and it come back. So, sad day. We're gonna have to adjust it a second time. So, we're gonna get under the hood and we're gonna adjust it another time and see what happens. Hopefully second time is a charm. So let's do it. All right. So after about 9,000 adjustments, I finally got the code to go away, and I actually found some information on the actuator, and I was able to get it within spec, get the code gone, and it was kind of hard to find the information. And I will say I kind of misled you guys. I said something about the resistance. I'll go over it once I get back. I got a little confused. It's been a long time since I worked on this car, so it's actually a 5-volt reference going into it. But we'll go over that when we get back. Right now, we have no code, and we're about to take it up the road and see how it runs. So, wish me luck, you guys. Okay. All right, so we've made it about 150 feet, and it hasn't, you know, sent a rod, so we're doing good there. Check engine light's still gone, which is great. So basically, on the actuator, on this BRM, the actuator rests in the up position, like inside the actuator, and then the vacuum actually pushes the actuator out. And with the there's 3 wires that go into it. It has a ground, it has a 5-volt reference going in, and then it has a 5-volt reference going out that tells like where the actual actuator is. And the computer is looking for a certain, like a certain voltage to come back, and I'm assuming it looks for it upon startup, because when you the issue I had was I was reading 2.6 volts coming out of the number 2 pin with it hooked up, and that's with the actuator at rest. And I could clear the code, and the code would go away with the key on. And then once you start the car up, the code would instantly come back. And once you start the car up, what happens is the car builds vacuum, and the actuator actually opens. And when it opens up, the voltage actually drops down, and it was dropping down to 0 volts. And I'm assuming, I found somebody who said it should be between 0.3 volts and like 3 volts. And so I was like, well, I'm at 0 and 2.6. So what I did is I slowly adjusted my actuator with the multimeter hooked up to where when it was at rest, it read exactly 3 volts. And so that way, when the actuator opened up and pushed all the way down, it was reading like 0.3. So then I was like, okay, that sounds right. It was a guy, some random guy online who had measured his for somebody that I found. And so as soon as I did that, I cranked the car up, and the code didn't come back. And now we're test driving the car, and it seems to be doing perfect. So we didn't really mess with the position of the vanes any. I mean, we did just a little bit, but we were mainly adjusting the rod to where the actual, when the vanes are completely closed and open, it's bottoming out, and it's preventing it from just going to 0. Because when the actuator was coming all the way out, like I said, it was at 0 volts, which was too low, which was what the code was saying. The code that I had was saying that, you know, the reading the PCM was getting was too low. So we have that working. The check engine light is no longer here, so we made it back. So we are in like mega plus mode right now. But it seems we have that issue fixed after about 2 years, which it would have been fixed then, but like I said, she had to have the car, and I couldn't really mess with it, because this was one of those I was gonna see if I could fix it kind of deals, because technically most people just delete it and go with a non-smart actuator, and then you have the people who just buy the whole turbo with the actuator installed, and that was fine. And it had to be fixed because the actuator that was on it was, I mean, the diaphragm was gone, so it had to be fixed. And I wanted to fix it myself, but I just didn't have time to really fool with it like I did right now. Because see, if I wouldn't have been able to get this figured out today, I could have just hopped in another vehicle, left it here. But before, you know, she was in school and she only had one vehicle and I only had, you know, 2 vehicles, and they were both undrivable by her. So now that we have more time, I'm able to fix that, and I'm glad I got to fix it, but I'll explain a little bit more in depth here in just a minute. Let me get up here to the shop and I'll go back over what I did. So I think we're good though. So. All right, guys, so here we are back under the hood. I'm gonna go over with my findings that I found. So on our connector here, we have a 3-wire, a 3-pin connector going into the actuator itself. The number 2 pin is the 5-volt reference going back to the PCM. Number 3, which is I think black with red, is the 5-volt going in, and then the brown and green is the ground. So I have back probed. It needs to be plugged in so that you can get the sensor reading. I have it back probed with my multimeter, and then the other end going to ground. And I have here DC volts, get that to stay. And as you can see, with the key on, the car's not running, I'm at 2.9. When I first set it, it was right at 3, I mean 3.00 volts. Which is what I was looking for, just based off of what I found from somebody else who said that they checked their voltage and that's what they were looking for their range. And so if I actually take, the actuator and I push it all the way to till it bottoms out, you can see that it drops down to 0.5 volts. So I'm assuming that the computer, when you first crank the car up and the actuator opens all the way up, it looks for that first reading, and if it's too low, then it throws the code. And I think I'm assuming the limit is 0.3 volts, because mine was going to 0, or like 0.1, and it was throwing it. And that guy said his was reading between 0.3 volts and 3 volts, and his car was working. So mine is reading between 0.5 and 2.9, which this is an aftermarket actuator, which is really the only way you can get that actuator. So maybe that's why the voltage isn't the same as what his, you know, good Volkswagen one is. But you can't just get the actuator from Volkswagen. So now that I have that set up, the car runs perfect, and the code is now gone, the check engine light's gone. So it looks like we may have cracked the code here. I think we got her. So just wanted to show you guys what I had found, and like I said, I do apologize for the resistance because I got a little confused. Like I said, I hadn't worked on this in a while, and I do work on a lot of electrical daily at my job, so I must have gotten it confused with something at my work with the resistance. But this has a 5-volt reference that it reads for the sensor here. So that's what we found, and we're good to go. Now I just got to look at the tire and see what's going on with that, and we'll be fixed. So let's get to the tire. All right, guys, so it seems we got our check engine light gone on my girlfriend's car, and I don't have to look at it anymore. And now if it's about to catch on fire, maybe, just maybe, she'll let me know. That was one thing that I really didn't want the check engine light to be on all the time when I first gave it to her, is because if there is another problem, we wouldn't know, because the check engine light was already on. Now that I have it off, if the check engine light comes back on, then she can say, hey, I broke my car, and I can look at it, and it doesn't just get driven until it catches on fire. So we got that figured out. And the tire, I checked the tire and I didn't see anything in it, so I think that it might just be the valve stem leaking down, because there's nothing in the tire. It could be leaking by the rim, but these are newer rims. I didn't see any damages to it. So I think it's going to be the valve stem. It's a very, very, very slow leak. In about 3 weeks time, it'll leak down to where when you look at it, you're like, it's leaked down, but like not super flat. It did get super flat the first time, and that's because I wasn't paying attention to it, and obviously she was not paying attention to it. It still takes a while. I filled it up the first time and it took about 3 weeks, and I looked at it the other day and it was pretty low, and I checked it and it was at like 28 pounds, and which is still a lot with these tires, but it looked lower than the others, and it was sagging just a little bit. And I run about 40 in these tires, so that tells you how much they leak, because I set them all to 40 and it leaked down to that in like about a 3 week time span. So just gonna have to keep an eye out. Maybe it'll get worse, or maybe I'll actually you know, remove the wheel and put a new valve stem in it. I really don't feel like it after all the time I've spent under the hood, but at least the check engine light's gone. And like I said, the tire is okay. I'll just keep an eye out on it. I'm a little burnt out on the tire deal. Like I said, she drives the Tesla every now and again, and the other day she drove it, and let's just say I work at a bodybuilder, a truck building plant. They build trucks, and there's rivets everywhere, and I've gotten rivets in other tires, but I think I've only really popped one set of tires. Well, like one tire on my Volkswagen that I had, and there's rivets all on the road. Everybody pops their tires, but if there's a nail or a rivet in the road, my girlfriend will find it, because the Tesla, it didn't last long. So the other day I had to go fix the fix the hole. She found a rusty nail, and I had to go fix a hole in the Tesla because, as some of you may know, Tesla does not have a spare tire. So I knew this, and I get it, and luckily I was able to fix the tire. She didn't go very far with it flat. It was completely flattened, and she drove it about 100 feet before she realized it, because, you know, nobody checks tires before they get in a vehicle. But anyways, I was able to fix it, and I think it's going to be okay. I drove on it, gave it a couple, you know, boosted launches to see if it was going to blow out, and because it was the rear, the driver rear, and it's done fine. So I think it's going to be okay. Luckily, because I really just didn't want to buy a tire, and I'm already burnt out from tires. I hate working on tires. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed working with me today. This is kind of just one of those random videos I wanted to post, of just me trying to figure something out. I know a lot of people, you know, they just be posting videos and they're like, do this, do this, do this, do that, and you don't actually see the process that goes behind of it. I mean, like for me, for instance, you know, I'm a mechanic. I do a lot. You know, I'm certified. I'm fully Ford certified, and I work at Freightliner. I'm EV certified now. I do a lot of electrical repair, and just wanted to show what actually goes down. I mean, nobody just instantly boom goes straight to it, which you do with some things. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I can, but this stuff, I don't work on BRMs that much. I don't really work on Volkswagen, period. I just know the ALH because I did a swap. This BRM I've done work to, but very minimal. So for me, this is a different world, because for me, I come from the Ford side, so I'm fully Ford certified. I know Freightliners now, you know, that side, but this side is also new to me, but I'm still a mechanic, so I'm able to figure it out. But just wanted to, you know, show you guys kind of a daily thing, because it's, you know, pretty much about every other day I'm here at the shop doing little things like this. Just let me know if you guys enjoyed these videos. I know you like the TDI videos, and I'm still going to make some kind of how-tos every now and again. Well, a lot probably. And I'm going to make TDI videos, shorty videos, Tesla videos, all that stuff. But I'm also probably going to slide in some of these vlogs. So just let me know what you guys think about the vlogs. If you you don't like them, if you do, then I'll throw some of these in here of just kind of my day-to-day kind of life diagnostic, because I'm a mechanic, so I'm a mechanic every day. So you'll see that, and maybe you'll learn something. I mean, like I said, we both kind of learned something today. If you don't work on BRMs, I mean, we both kind of learned something today. So hey, you know, we're friends now. So anyways, I appreciate you guys watching, and as always, like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.